Hey bike farmers, thanks for clicking in. Something a little different today. I had pulled this bike out to do a typical BikeFarmer tune-up video, and per the usual, I took the rear wheel off, and per the usual, I started replacing the spoke protector. You can see it's got a brand new one on it, and I got it all put back together, and then I noticed that this hub said Claris on it. And I was like, huh. Shimano Claris is a road bike hub, which is 130 millimeter spacing. And then it triggered my memory that when I took this wheel out of the frame, it was like kind of loose in there and it wasn't fitting right. But my brain didn't really register because sometimes bikes are just like weird, especially used bikes. And you kind of, you know, you've seen it. I like work through the issues as I go. Well, it's one of those examples and I'm like, oh, that's the wrong hub for this bike, which isn't completely accurate. So I was like, well, I'm gonna run around the bike farm and try to find a used replacement wheel, a decent Shimano Alex rims, you know, this kind of a nicer hybrid, and I couldn't find one. So I started thinking it through, and in reality, the hub is just fine. It's the axle. So what I need to do is go find an older Shimano mountain bike hub, which is 135 millimeter spacing. Hybrids and mountain bikes are 135 millimeter spacing in the rear, and road bikes are 130 millimeter spacing. It's super dumb, but that's the way it is. That's the way it's always been. I had one just sitting here, and the hub is buttery smooth. This is an old Shimano STX RC 8-speed with 135 millimeter axle in it, with all the spacers and everything. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna pull this one out. I'm gonna pull this one out, then I'm gonna put this one in this one, and then throw the rest away. Actually, I'll probably save this axle because it's kind of hard to find these replacement axles now, and they're like super expensive. So, but I'll have to like label it that it's 130 millimeters so I don't just like send myself down a rabbit hole later. But anyway, this is just gonna be an axle swap video. Once I get done with that, then this bike is gonna be a really nice classic tune-up video. So 2 videos in one, and let's just tear apart some axles. The spacing I'm talking about is from here to here is 135. The bike is 135 and the hub is 130. So right now the skewer is squishing the bike frame together to meet the wheel. Now if I loosen up this quick release skewer, you see that gap that formed right there? Now you want a little bit, you know, to be able to get the wheel in and out, but you don't want to be able to see light through there. And if I actually unscrew this even more, you can see the gap growing, you know, or maybe you can see it over on this side better. But that gap, you know, this should, when you do that, this should be flush here or here. Now if I take the mountain bike wheel, I can show you, here, let's put it in the right way. It doesn't really matter, but see, that's flush. No flippity floppity back and forth. It's in there perfect. So that's why we're gonna pull this axle out, and the cones and everything should be the same because it's all Shimano. All right, first step is to get the cassette and spoke protector and skewer and everything off of this one. It's a little loose too. I like to do hubs on the ground, I guess, instead of the workbench. It kind of depends, but I'm here and I like this. I'm gonna try to keep everything as much in order and not try to drop ball bearings all over the place as I can here. But, you know, like the spacer, let's see here. You know, that spacer and that nut, because I got to get the spacing right. You know, essentially I'm going to be adding 2.5 millimeters to each side. I think that my math is right. And hopefully I can just, well, it's going to be a little different. Oh no, I should just be able to take that axle out and I think the spacing should be right. But we don't know that for sure yet. Now I want to be gentle with this so the balls don't go flying. I'm holding the back side here with one hand and then keeping things at an angle so the balls don't go flipping around. Oh, dropped the wrench. One thing I will do is I'll take my grease gun that I know works because I fixed it. Okay. And then that grease will kind of hold those bearings in there. We'll pull this out gently. Hopefully not take everything with it. Oh, there's a ball coming out. Watch out. Here to come. I got my super skinny needle nose here. Nice ball grabber. Somebody commented last time I was doing this stuff that I should get a magnet. I'm like, yeah, but wouldn't that just grab them all? All right, so I'm gonna use this grease to just kind of hold things from getting too out of hand here. Oh, there's one wanting to escape. All right, can you see? Yeah. So get some grease going in there. This is just a poker tool I made here. You could use a nail or anything, frankly. A stick. Go out in the yard, get yourself a stick. Oh, dropped one. This is the kind of thing that I really don't like doing for customer bikes because frankly, it's just not worth it. You know, a shop will charge, most shops charge about $90 an hour in labor, and you can just see like how it can get tricky and start taking a lot of time. And so for the shop to be profitable and for it to make sense for the customer, a lot of times it's easier just to replace the wheel, which is unfortunate. But if you're DIY or like me and it's the middle of winter and you got nothing better to do, it can be done and it's good as new. One might say better than brand new with all this fresh grease. Okay, so now it's all greased up and the balls are in there, right? And it's gonna be ready for the new axle. So let's rob the one from the mountain bike now. Take our poker tool. This is just a dust cap thingy. There's the spacer on that one, and you can see the difference here, right? And if I'm looking at it, yeah, it's about 2.5 inches bigger. 2.5 millimeters bigger. Oh, but then it's got this other one. This might be 7-speed on this side, so this might get really tricky to get this spaced out properly. Because this looks like a 7-speed free hub, which is going to be a different size free hub. So this could get, it might be some calculus involved here. Let's see how it goes. At least I know that this is the old spacer and this is the new one. So maybe I just need to move this spacer to the other side to make up for 7 and 8 speed. The math has to work out somehow. Sometimes I get really terrible at explaining how I'm thinking about things. It's not easy. Making these videos can be tricky because, you know, I gotta get everything on camera or else it's not worth making. And I gotta kind of explain myself, and I have a hard time doing that. You know, if it's just me doing this, it, you know, probably takes 20 minutes, but doing all that takes a little bit longer. So there's the new axle. It's longer, and I'll show you here in a second, but I'm gonna use the old cones and everything and just add spacers because these are not the exact same. They're not at all, but this axle will work. So the guts, the bits won't work, won't transfer, but the axle will. So we're gonna loosen that lock nut. I thought I was gonna loosen that lock nut. There we go. So I'm gonna reuse the drive side. If I kind of line everything up here, the drive side is just a little bit bigger than on the old one. Or is it just the spacer? No, that's the cone. Okay, so I did some thinking, and we are going to keep everything on the drive side of the Claris hub the exact same. It's just not gonna change. That'll keep everything in the same position on the drive side, and that's good. And then we're just gonna add 5 millimeters of spacing to the non-drive side, and then we will dish the wheel. So we're gonna pull the wheel over 2.5 millimeters, or pull the rim over 2.5 millimeters, which technically speaking, you know, we should have different size spokes, but we'll get away with it. It's doable. Because by only changing the spacing on one side of the axle, the whole thing's gonna move over 2.5 millimeters. And well, it's actually gonna move over 5 millimeters, but we're gonna have to move it back 2.5 millimeters to be right. Hopefully that's clear as mud. Get the drive side Guten tight. Okay, so yeah, so we didn't want to add any spacing there because it would get goofy then. The drive line would change, and don't want to do that. It's a whole different can of worms. I wasn't thinking it clearly in the beginning. And then I just took the old spacer and added a 5 millimeter spacer in there. So you see there's the lock nut and then 2 spacers. And this is the old cone that's going back in. Oh man, am I running out of threads? How does that work? I can't be running out of threads. That's never happened to me. Or did I do this backwards? I hate working on bikes. I think I got this axle backwards. So I've never seen this before, but this axle has threads to about there, and then it stops, and then it's like a ton of threads on this side. So I'm gonna put the drive side, which has less spacing, on the side with the fewer threads. I have never looked for that or seen that or noticed that before in my life. So it's super annoying that it had to happen here, but I don't know. Maybe if I put it out into the universe, it'll prevent somebody from being as ignorant and dumb as I am. So you're welcome. Kind of like my grandmother, after she'd been eating prunes. We're learning as we go here. It's kind of a wasted day if you don't learn something new. Oh. Dropped a corner. Man, it's hard being Andy Q. All right, there's that. You can see the drive side is nice and clean. Everything's Guten tight. Put on 2 spacers, 1, 2, and then hopefully once we thread this puppy on, which of course it doesn't want to play nice. So if we get this guy threaded on, if I did my math correctly, we'll have approximately the same number of threads on both sides, right? So you have that many sticking out, and then you have that many. There's a little bit more on that side, but that's acceptable. Okay, and then everything's like finger tight at this point. Take my 5 millimeter cone wrench, get that on its flats, then take that guy and crank down. And usually that's enough to bring that cone up a little bit, give a little bit of play. Okay, that's a little tight. No, we're okay here. We're gonna loosen it just a smidge. So, I'm gonna loosen the lock nut. I've still got the cone wrench on. I'm gonna just turn this side a little bit. Lock that down good and tight. Yeah, there's just a tiny bit of play in there. So now, with a tiny bit of play, once we get that skewer on there and the cam action of the skewer is gonna squeeze that in just a fraction of a millimeter and make that just exactly perfect. So, we haven't dished this wheel yet, but just to check the fit. There we go. Problem solved. But, can you see how far to the right that wheel is in the frame? It's a really hard shot to get. But anyway, we gotta pull it this way, 2.5 millimeters at least. So I have my truing stand set up to dish. I haven't checked it in a while, but you can see here, if the truing stand is dished properly, which I think it is pretty good, you can see this gap here is what we gotta close. And to do so, I'm gonna start at my valve stem here. See if I can get you a good, maybe back off a bit here. So, start at my valve stem, and I'm going to tighten all the spokes on this side of the wheel. So this one and this one, you know, all of these spokes will get tightened and all of these will get loosened. And I'm only gonna do like a turn on each one. We're gonna go all the way around the wheel. Just kind of try to do the same to each one. That might be too much actually, but then we'll just add tension back. Oh, that was really good. Yeah, it's I can just add a little bit of tension to the drive side now to true it. So we can just kind of go through and touch this up. It's got to come, I mean, it's really close. It doesn't have to come anyway, really. We could just throw it on the bike and go for a ride. But we'll get it as close to just exactly perfect as we can here. Man, that went really well. I am good. Look at that. This is such a nice wheel. This really turned out well. All right, let's grab that skewer, put it back in the bike. Oh, it fits like a glove. Fixed. There you have it, bike farmers. I think that was a fun little bike hack repair, maybe. You know, somebody might watch this and might even have a problem with what I just did by swapping those axles because it's a road hub or something. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I think it's just fine. I think it's good enough for who it's for. Papa don't preach. I'm keeping this baby. And this bike is a perfect example of just a classic tune-up and when your bike needs a tune-up. And that's the idea for the video that I was gonna film this morning. So I think you could just click up here and watch that video. But before you do that, Please like this video if you got anything out of it at all. Leave me a comment, subscribe to the channel. If you really liked it and was like, oh, finally he did that, or Bike Farmer is the greatest thing ever, send me a super thanks. And so if you click on the super thanks button, that money goes straight into my bank account. I mean, it's not quite straight into my account, but we eliminate the middleman. But it's like, I just run right across the street and I get tacos and I put them in my belly and I eat them, and then I'm nourished and I have all the energy in the world to keep making content like this. So super thanks, keeps things going. Love it, love it, love it. Or if you don't want to deal with that hassle every time I watch one of my videos and you know you're going to love them all, consider joining as a member of the channel. That's like a sustaining monthly membership, and that's just supporting me as a creator and encouraging me to keep going against all odds. And I love it. And the membership is growing, and that helps me think that what I'm doing here is worthwhile. So much appreciated to all the people that have done that in the past. And for yourself, don't forget to click that notification bell so you and your bikes can stay tuned.